is John from Dairyland Frights. And are you scared of your podcast hosting site? Well, not anymore, because with Podbean, you can get a free month of hosting for your podcast. And also, yes, there's more. You can get $100 of free advertising for your podcast, where you can advertise on Dairyland Frights or in many other podcasts on Podbean. So don't be scared and come over to Podbean today. And you can go to Dairyland Frights, podbean.com. That's Dairyland Frights, podbean.com. So don't be scared. Come over to Podbean. We love it. You'll love it too. Hello, spooky friends. Today, we're bringing you another great episode of Dairyland Frights, the paranormal podcast that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest. My name is John, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Brooke and Megan. How you guys doing? Have you been abducted by aliens from our last episode? You want to bring anything
Not
up?
today, unfortunately.
Not yet.
Okay.
Still looking out, still keeping an eye over my shoulder and everything.
Nobody showed up and gave you a jar with an alien in it, perhaps?
Unfortunately not. Unfortunately not.
Dang it.
Fingers crossed.
From our last episode, listen to it and you'll find out what we're talking about. So today we're going to the great state of Michigan, and we're going to talk about the Michigan Dogman. And thank you so much. I said Mackinac, and I'm a mushmouth. It is Mackinac Island. Thanks to Megan. That's why she's a great teammate to help me when I mispronounce stuff.
Oh, I do.
We got each other. We got each other's backs here at Dairyland Fright. And we're going to talk about the island, of course, Grand Hotel, and other spooky stuff. But just really quickly, and maybe we'll do this from time to time, but last night I watched a movie on Netflix called Where's My Ghost? And it's basically about a movie. It's a movie about these teenagers who find a ghost in their house, and the parents kind of like want to use the ghost to make money, and the kids just want to figure out why the ghost is in the house. And then there's a storyline with the government who want to use the ghost for obviously military purposes. But it's a really sentimental, fun movie. I give it like 3.5 stars out of 5. I know Megan and Brooke, you have not watched it yet, but I'd recommend it. It's a nice like Sunday night, there's nothing on. I'm going to watch it. So just a quick
It sounds fun.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah. So let's get right into it. The Michigan Dogman. Brooke, take it away.
Yeah, we got a lot of fun stuff to cover when it comes to this. So it's kind of fun. This is going to be a little bit of a continuation of our Beast of Bray Road story. So I don't remember how many weeks ago it was, but we did do an episode on the Beast of Bray Road, and there are a ton of parallels you'll kind of see sprinkled throughout. But a very similar story, but it's very interesting. So to set the scene a little bit, the Michigan Dogman was allegedly first witnessed in 1887 in Wexford County, Michigan, which is in the northern area of like the main part of Michigan. So it's not the Upper Peninsula. It's actually, I looked at like compared to Wisconsin, it's basically on the same like longitude as Green Bay. So it's like directly east across Lake Michigan from Green Bay.
Right.
So in the case of this first sighting, there's not a ton of information, but allegedly 2 lumberjacks saw a creature that they described as having the head of a wolf and the body of a man. And I guess this was not really uncommon for something that people would see back then, like especially lumberjacks, like living, working, constantly being out in the woods. This was like pretty common experience for them. And it was kind of similar to like how during the Hodag episode, we talked about how the lumberjacks kind of had their own like wives' tales about Hodags and like all these spirits and ghosts that they would kind of see out in the woods. And they would make up a lot of stories, but they also had a lot of interesting and unique experiences doing what they did. So that is where the original sightings of Dogman kind of happened, but Dogman sightings in Michigan have occurred in a lot of different locations, including the Upper Peninsula and other areas around the mainland of Michigan. But a lot of them seem to be centered around the Wexford County area, because there is also, I think it's the Huron-Manistee National Forest is like in that area too, which is a very like dense forest area. So a couple other initial sightings. So in 1937 in Paris, Michigan, a man named Robert Fortney was attacked by 5 wild dogs.
Ooh.
And he said that one of them stood on 2 legs.
Ooh.
And then in 1967 in Manistee, Michigan, there were multiple sightings of a creature with the body of a man and the head of a dog. So we will come back to some of this stuff, but if you might have noticed something strange, and that is that all of the years that I mentioned, 1887, 1937, and 1967, all end in a 7. So according to the legend, the Dogman actually reappears in Michigan in 10-year cycles in years that end in a 7. Kind of a fun, interesting little twist on like the local lore. But so before we move on, I want to talk a little bit about, I feel like you can't talk about the Michigan Dogman without talking about this song called The Legend. So a lot of the notoriety that surrounds the Michigan Dogman originates from this original song called The Legend. So in 1987, these 2 radio personalities, John O'Malley and Steve Cook of WTCM FM in Traverse City, Michigan, they recorded an original song. And they kind of recorded it as an April Fool's joke. So, Steve Cook, he had written a poem that kind of chronicled different run-ins with the Michigan Dogman that happened every 10 years, starting with the lumberjack story in 1887. And he actually claimed that he kind of based this song on various myths and legends he had heard of around the U.S. He wasn't really aware of the Michigan Dogman specifically at this time. I think he knew about the lumberjack story, but everything else that's mentioned in the song is kind of like he heard this happened somewhere at some time. And so he kind of just like put it into a song talking about like, in 1887, this happened. In 1897, this happened. So they put together the song. It's very fun. Like if you listen to it, it's more like a spoken word poetry with like some folky tunes played in the background. We would definitely recommend it. It's kind of goofy. It's fun. Nice. But they played the song on April 1st, again, as an April Fool's joke, because it was 1987. So allegedly the monster was supposed to come back this year. So they made the song, they played it. And they didn't really hear anything from their listeners for a couple days. But about like a week later, they started receiving a bunch of calls from listeners who claimed that they had run-ins with a creature that was described in the song. And then a bunch of people started asking about the song. They were asking like, when would it be played again? What was that weird song? And pretty quickly it became like the most requested song on the station. And yeah, it was really funny. Like they were obsessed with this song. And it started getting like play in like other states, and like pretty soon like other countries like wanted to get like rights to play the song because people were like really interested in it. And they eventually like recorded it and put it on cassette, and they sold the cassettes for $4 a piece. And they sold a bunch of them. They ended up donating, at least in their first run, they donated about $2,000 to a local like Humane Society and animal shelter. Yeah, that was cool. Kind of ties in with the whole Dogman thing. But yeah, they continued to kind of like sell this song and like replay it in the years in the future. And and he actually re-recorded the song too. So in 1997 and in 2007, he recorded updated versions of it. Steve Cook did. And they kind of tweaked the lyrics a little bit based on like new things that had happened. And they updated the musical backing to make it a little bit more modern and like more catchy and stuff too. So the one that I listened to, I think, was the most recent one, and it's catchy. It's pretty good. I like it. Nice. But because of this song, Steve Cook has actually received like more than 100 reports of these Dogman sightings because people will specifically come to him because they think that he's kind of like this expert on Dogman because he wrote the song, which is kind of fun. But yeah, so I put in some of the lyrics here. So the this is the start of it. So we start with the lumberjack. So the lyrics go, 11 lumberjacks near the Garland Swamp found an animal they thought was a dog. In a playful mood, they chased it around till it ran inside a hollow log. A logger named Johnson grabbed him a stick and poked around inside. Then the thing let out an unearthly scream and came out and stood upright. None of those men ever said very much about whatever happened then. They just packed up their belongings and left that night, never were heard from again. And again, it kind of continues with like different stories. Like there's like a farmer who died in like the 10 years later, and then like a widow 10 years later, and like all these different people who passed away and had these run-ins with the dog man. But the ending is fun. So it goes on like this, presumably untrue or like quasi-true stories, but the ending is what really caught people's attention. So the last couple lines go, so far this year, no stories have appeared. Have the dogmen gone away? Have they disappeared? Soon enough, I guess we'll know, because this is the time to fear. For another 10 years has come around. The 7th year is here. And somewhere in the Northwoods darkness, a creature walks upright. And the best advice you may ever get is never to go out at night. So, very spooky.
That's awesome.
Very fun.
You know who
right?
should
Isn't
cover
it? It's
this?
really fun.
Yeah, you know who should cover this? Weird Al Yankovic.
Yeah.
You know Weird Al. If anybody knows Weird Al, reach
Yeah.
out. dairylandfrights@gmail.com and we'll have him cover this.
It's not, it's right up his alley. It's super fun. I would
it's
highly
good.
recommend listening to the song. It's a good time. I'm like, I added it to my new playlist. It very much sticks out from the rest of the music, but it's fun. So that's the song. And again, the song coming out in 1987 kind of like spurred a bunch of new sightings and stuff like that, because people were interested in it, and a lot of people would call Steve Cook and tell him about, you know, sightings that they had like years prior, things like that. So it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I just saw this thing like this year. It was like, oh, I saw this thing back in like 81 or whatever. So I wanted to cover a couple encounters that are a little bit more well known, and specifically that have like photographic evidence tied to them, because beyond just the song and like the kind of most likely fake stories, there are a ton of eyewitness accounts of this creature in Michigan, and a couple of them were pretty interesting. So this first one happened in 1961, and it was viewed by, or this is from the account of like a night watchman. And as you can already tell, this does not fit the years ending in 7 narrative. So this did not happen in 1967. It was 1961. However, the story was told in earnest by the son of a night watchman who worked at a manufacturing plant in Big Rapids, Michigan, many years after it took place. So again, I believe that he did not recount this story until after that song came out in 1987, but it happened many years prior to that. Was told by his son, but he was very familiar with the story that his dad had told him. So Big Rapids is north of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and it actually is close to that original location of Wexford County, and it's close to the Huron-Manistee Forest, where a lot of the other sightings have also occurred. This seems to be kind of like the hotbed area. So the watchman recalled that he often heard coyotes, bears, and other strange animal noises in the brush while making his rounds at night. But one night he experienced something truly unique and terrifying. So he was kind of like a second shift guy. He worked very late at night. And at this time, he actually lived on a house that, or at a house that was like on the property of this place that he was watching over, or was like right across the street from like the main area that he would kind of just keep an eye on. And so he had kind of just finished making his rounds, and he was sitting on his own porch, and it was 3 a.m. And his porch was located on the premises. So he's sitting there, he's eating a cinnamon roll and drinking a cup of coffee, and just kind of like, you know, the sun is maybe just about to come up. He's just kind of enjoying his time. And along the chain link fence at the back of the property, he saw some movement. And so he drew his gun, which he carried with him when he was doing his rounds. And he continued watching near the fence for a few minutes, and eventually realized that what he was looking at was not human. It had broad, powerful shoulders and alternated. He says that it alternated between like walking on 2 legs and walking on all 4. So it would kind of like walk on all 4s, and it would like stand up on its hind legs and like kind of walk on its hind legs and then go back to all 4s. And he said it was moving unlike anything he had ever seen before. And so this guy was actually like an amateur photographer. So in 1961, this is like, photography is not what it is today, but he had like a professional camera in his house. So he had a Kodak Signet 35 millimeter. And so he actually went inside to get it. He came back out. The creature was still there. So he set up his camera and he set it up for a long exposure because it was still pretty dark out. And again, this guy like knew what he was doing with cameras. And so he photographed the creature. It was kind of wandering around the factory's driveway, and it was stopped like underneath a lamppost and just kind of like standing there. And so when you look at this picture, again, it's the 60s, so it does look really blurry. However, the photo does appear to show like a hunched over figure standing upright on its two hind legs, and appears to be around 7 feet tall based on how tall the like lamppost is.
Yep.
Yeah, and definitely covered in fur. And a lot of people think that they can kind of see like a canine like snout. So this photo is in the outline. If you guys want to look at it, we can put it on our Instagram too.
Yep.
But you can definitely see its like hind legs, that they're like muscular by its thighs and then kind of like thinner down by its like calves. And it's really interesting. He's kind of like behind the pole, so you can't see all of it, but it's a very interesting picture. And the guard's son actually provided the original photo, which was taken on celluloid film. So it's very difficult to like tamper with.
Yeah, it's very hard to fake.
Yeah. And then his son actually says that after this, his father carried a rifle with him pretty much on all of his patrols, but also like anytime he was outside, especially at night. And he was very paranoid about his son playing outside after dark. And would, like not really let him do that either, because he was just terrified of this thing coming back. I will say that like I saw this story multiple times, but I couldn't really find the original source of it. So there's no like real name tied to this story. And it's hard to kind of understand the validity of it. I did find one article written by this guy who claims that he like debunked the photo by changing the exposure and proving that it was edited in Photoshop, but he doesn't specify at all how he knows that. He didn't seem like he really knew what he was talking about either. So it kind of is like it's hard to validate the photo, but it's also like I don't really think that this guy knew what he was talking about either. But yeah, it's definitely interesting though. And it's like you can even see the chain link fence in the background that like the guy was talking about, the driveway, the lamppost. The thing looks very tall compared to the lamppost. So it's definitely interesting. I don't know. What do you guys think it looks like? What do you think? Does it look like a dog man?
Megan, what do you think?
I mean, I can kind of see it, honestly. Like, I don't know what else it would be. Like, it does look like a humanoid creature.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So here's my first thing. I don't think it's very smart because it's hiding behind a pole that is definitely not a good hiding place. Like, if it's trying not to be seen, like, why would you hide behind a pole with a light right over you? It's like when my kids played hide and seek, and they would like hide under the couch every day. And I'd be like, they're under the couch. And the other thing is, maybe you just smell the cinnamon roll and just be like, "Damn, that's a good cinnamon roll."
I mean, I would.
I would too. I love
that. Is so
rolls.
True.
So here's my thing. Let's put up some cinnamon rolls.
See if they attract the dogmen.
Yeah. But honestly, I mean, I'm really on the fence about this one, Brooke, because it looks like, again, if it was some guy in an ape suit, right, you could tell, right? It kind of gives away that kind of, but if you look at the legs and you're like, okay, I kind of, I don't know. I really am on the fence about this one, and it's interesting. I'll give you that, because again, if they're in an ape suit or some type of suit, even not like today where you can go out and get like a costume that looks real. In 60s, probably not, unless you know some makeup artist or some special effects guy. That's interesting. I'll give you that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely interesting.
Hmm.
But yeah, so this was one of the earlier encounters that became a little bit more well known. And there is a more recent one too, which I thought was interesting. So this happened in
Hmm.
2007. So this does abide by the rule of the year ending in 7. So this was a story recounted by the brother-in-law of a prominent political figure, who we do not know the name of, again, because he wanted to remain anonymous
Sure.
because he didn't want anything to like harm his, chances of getting elected, I'm sure, by being the Dogman guy. So it was recounted by his brother-in-law. So while driving home from a friend's house along Cinder Road in Benzie County near the town of Bendon, the man noticed eyes reflecting the light from his high beams in the road in front of him. And so, like most people in the Midwest, he kind of assumed this was a deer. So he
Right.
just began slowing down. At this point, it's like 500 feet in front of him. So he starts slowing down, getting a little bit closer, assuming that the deer at some point is going to like run away like usual. However, as he gets closer, he realizes that the eyes are much further off the ground than a deer's would be. So he estimated that the eyes were about 6 or 7 feet off the
Hmm.
ground. And at this point, he can
Ooh.
still only see the eyes. But he's like, it looks a little weird. And then finally, he keeps getting closer and closer. And when he was like 200 or 300 feet away, he realized that the creature looked like a large wolf. And so at this point, he like stops because he's a little freaked out. And then he notices that it looks like a wolf, but there's something weird about it. And as you might guess, this creature was standing on 2 legs.
Okay.
And
That's
it was off to the side of the road at this point, and he was actually standing behind a deer carcass. Like the guy could see there was a carcass of a deer right in front of this creature. And so he stopped the car at this point. He's looking at this creature standing upright on 2 legs, and it didn't move. Like they're just kind of like having to stare down, like he's staring at the wolf guy. It's not moving. And he said he thought that it might be fake for a little bit because it was standing so still that he thought maybe someone like
Yeah.
put it there to freak people out or something like that. But
Sure.
pretty soon, like maybe 30 seconds later, it like took off and bolted into the nearby woods off the side of the road.
Whoa.
Hmm.
And now this guy does something that I don't think that I would have done in this situation, but I don't know. I guess I can't say. He actually pulls off to the side of the road where the animal was standing. So by where
That's your
the
first
deer
mistake.
carcass is. I know, right? Yeah. I'm like, I don't think I would have done this. But
No.
he had a flashlight in his car, and he like leans out of the car and shines a flashlight on the ground to like look at and see if
Wow.
there's where the animal was standing to see if he can see anything. And he noticed a footprint where the animal was standing, which
Ooh.
looked like a wolf or a dog footprint, but it was 8 inches across, which is basically twice the size
Yeah.
of an average wolf print.
Huh.
Yeah.
And he also noticed that it seemed to be like very deep in the mud, leading him to think that the creature was heavy and that it was putting a lot of pressure onto like those hind legs. If it was standing on 2 feet, that would make sense. And then there's actually, again, a picture of this. So he took a picture of it. He put a shotgun shell in the footprint for scale. So you'll see that in the picture, like in the pad. Yeah. So you can see like how huge it is if it's real. That's pretty crazy. That definitely looks much larger than like a wolf print.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it's very big. And interestingly, so people who saw this said that it looks like it could potentially be like a bear print. And they had asked him, like, do you think that it could have been a bear? Because it would kind of make sense a little bit, because bears are, when they stand upright, they could be like 7 feet tall.
Yes, absolutely.
And he said no, and he said he was an avid hunter and he would know the difference between a bear and a wolf, and that he definitely was sure that it wasn't a bear. But it's interesting. Definitely interesting. But some of the similarities to the Beast of Bray Road are kind of interesting. So the Michigan Dogman is very frequently associated with stories of the Beast of Bray Road, and many people, including our friend Linda Godfrey, believes that they're connected and likely at the same. Yeah, rest in peace, Linda. But she thinks that they're all like the same creature or same phenomena happening, because There's just so many similarities between people's encounters with these creatures. There was a lot of different theories as well, and a lot of them we talked about during the Beast of Bray Road, so I won't talk about those same ones again. Both of these stories that have photographic evidence kind of seem to be a little bit sketchy and not linked to any specific person or source, which isn't completely abnormal given, people are definitely more likely to not want to be connected to the stories when it comes to this sort of thing because they don't want to be crazy or they don't want to seem weird. But it's still like, it's frustrating when it's like, okay, this is really interesting photographic evidence, but we don't know who took the picture. We can't verify a lot of the information. But there's so many stories too beyond this that I didn't include that don't include photographic evidence, but are like very interesting stories too, though. But one of the theories that we kind of mentioned in the last one is the theory of dire wolves, which I don't really subscribe to, but it's always brought up though. So dire wolves are essentially an ancient wolf species, considered to be extinct and believed to be extinct. But they were about 25% larger than gray wolves that are common in the area. But the thing is, like, they also were not bipedal or anything. Like, they wouldn't have stood up on two legs. Again, there are instances where wolves will, like, stand up and, like, lean on something. Or, like, you can see pictures of wolves kind of up on their hind legs. But they can't, like, stay like that and walk around like that. And neither could dire wolves. So it's not really, like... it might happen, but it's not going to be like you're seeing a wolf running down the street on its hind legs like that. That's not a thing. So dire wolves, is a theory, but again, I don't really believe that one. The bears one is definitely the theory that it is actually a bear is definitely a persistent one. With a lot of the Dogman stories, specifically like bears who have just recently come out of hibernation or they're malnourished, sick, underweight. In a lot of cases, these bears in those instances could kind of look like a upright wolf because when they're skinnier, you can kind of see their bone structure a little bit more, and their skulls actually do have a similar structure to that of a wolf. And again, the height would kind of make sense, and like the way that their coat is described. And also like the tendency to hang out by roadkill, because if a bear is like malnourished, it's probably not hunting, it would probably eat roadkill and be more like scavenging. So it kind of makes sense, and I think that it could, like, that theory could maybe describe or explain some people's encounters. Something else that I think is interesting is this theory of Native American Cheyenne warriors. So I didn't do a ton of research into this. I just saw a little bit about it, but apparently the Cheyenne Native American tribe, they had like an army of dogmen, and it was these guys who would spend years becoming one with dogs and wolves out in the wilderness. And according to legend, these men were eventually able to transform into dogs at will, and they are still said to like live out, even though a lot of their like other tribesmen have kind of died out. A lot of people believe that these guys kind of still live out there, and
Hey,
are
Brooke,
still
is this
kind of
anything like skinwalkers, or is this totally separate from?
This is a different thing. So this is like skinwalkers are more like an evil thing. I don't know a ton about it, but like this is more like the dogmen aren't like bad, which I was about to actually talk about. So like it sounds strange, but some people gravitate towards this theory specifically because of the fact that no one who has encounters with these dogman creatures ever seem to come to any harm. In most cases, they appear to be like non-threatening. They feed on already deceased animals, and a lot of people see them like feeding on carcasses of deer that have been hit, that kind of thing. But according to Cheyenne descendants, this could be because the Native Americans believe that only wrongdoing should bring harm upon oneself. So like if you have not done anything wrong, then nothing wrong should happen to you. So the dogman wouldn't attack unless it's being threatened or provoked.
Makes sense.
Because if it is, if you subscribe to the legend and believe that it was at one point like a Native American person, they wouldn't want harm to come to someone.
Right.
So So that's why a lot of people put a little bit more stake into that like theory than one might think that people would, because it does seem very like fantastical, I guess. But yeah, the fact that I mean I've read so many encounters now with people like encountering these dogmen, and everyone always says like, yeah, it was scary, but like it didn't do anything. Like it had every opportunity to like come after me or whatever. And maybe sometimes it'll like charge at a car, but it doesn't really like it seems to more want to instill fear in people maybe, but not hurt people.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah, which is interesting. And then the other theory is that it's a hoax.
Of course.
So some people it's always the theory, but I gotta put it in there. Yeah, but a lot of people think that the stories have come to fruition due to the popularity of that song that I talked about at the beginning from 1987, The Legend, and that it's like the sole explanation for all of this, which I definitely think can describe some of the occurrences. Like I'm sure some people maybe like got into their own head about it and were like, yeah, I totally saw that thing. Oh my God, it's 1987. It definitely happened or something.
Right.
But I definitely don't think that it makes sense for everything, given that Dogman encounters have been talked about like all over the country and the world for like hundreds and hundreds of years, even thousands of years. Like the Beast of Jovedan, which again, I think I brought up during the Beast of Bray Road episode, but was like a story from France in the 1700s of these people who were like having run-ins with a dog man and like hunting it and stuff like that. And it was kind of terrorizing. I don't think that, maybe it was just a big wolf and they didn't know what it was. But again, like people have talked about this for thousands of years. Something else I wanted to throw out there. This is a little bit different, but there's a podcast that I found called Dogman Encounters. Very straight to the point. And it specifically covers people's sightings and interactions with Dogman all over America. And some of them are super interesting. I was listening to this one, and it wasn't Michigan. I believe this guy was from Tennessee, but it was episode 117. And it was crazy. Like I had never been so convinced about it until like listening to this guy's story, because he tells a story about something that happened to him in 1981, and he talks about how like he has never told anyone about it because he always thought he was like he knew what happened, but he always was like, I don't know if I was crazy, like I don't know who to tell. He never told anyone in his family, his kids, his wife, his parents, like nobody. And eventually he started listening to this podcast and hearing everyone else's stories, and was like finally like got up the courage to reach out to them and tell his story. And his story, it's just like, it's crazy. Like the amount of detail, and like you can hear like his voice shaking as he's describing it. Like he's totally reliving it. Like you can tell how traumatized he is and how emotionally he is over it. But he talks about how he encountered this creature while he was driving, and the creature basically like charged at him. And it's like crazy. He talks about how he really didn't want to look at the creature's face because he knew it was going to freak him out. And it was like running, like keeping pace with his car. And he knew that it was he knew it was like a wolf, and he knew it was like running on two legs, but he like was so freaked out to look at it. And eventually he just couldn't help it. And he like looked at its face, and they like made eye, and you could just hear in his voice, like how freaked out he was. I don't know. I would really recommend listening to it because it was crazy.
Sounds great.
But these guys have like hundreds of episodes, this Dogman Encounters podcast, and it's just all people recounting their experiences. There's a subreddit called Dogman, where people talk. Again, it's not just Michigan and Wisconsin. Again, it's all over the place. So it's really interesting. But yeah, I just wanted to end on a quote from Steve Cook. So he did an interview with this website called Skeptoid. And he said, I'm tremendously skeptical because I've sort of seen the way folklore becomes built from the creation of the song to what it's turned into. But I do believe people who think they saw something really did see something. I also think the Dogman provides them with an avenue to explain what they couldn't explain for themselves.
Sure.
Which, is a good point.
Great quote.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. But yeah, so that's a little bit about the Michigan Dogman. There's a lot of stories. A lot of interesting stuff. So yeah.
So what thought on
Go
that?
ahead.
Yeah, what do you guys think?
So
yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking, how the Dogman was kind of running along with that car and kind of freaking that guy out a little bit. Do you think that there's
Mhm.
there's ever any cryptids that are like pranksters? Like, do you think there's any monsters that like
You
get
know
a
what?
kick out of scaring people? Because like that would be kind of
That's
fun.
it's so funny that you say that because so I was listening to that podcast on YouTube and then I was kind of like scrolling through the comments just kind of like nonchalantly and there was this one woman who commented on it and she was like I'm so sick of the dog man, like it's such a bully, like all it does is like want to scare people because she's like I've listened to like hundreds of these stories and all it does is like try to freak people out and
Yeah.
like it's funny
Yeah.
because I think it's like well known among people who are like familiar with Dogman that he's not the Dogman. Dogmen are not like they're not predatory, they're not gonna kill you, they're not
Right.
gonna hurt you, but they're gonna freak you the hell out. And like, like that's it's interesting.
I could
It's
just
funny that you say that though, because
I could see them, you know,
She was
going back
upset.
to their little, you know, horde of dogmen and being like, guess what I did today? I had
Yeah.
this guy like crapping
Right?
his pants.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah,
funny.
right.
Yeah.
You're like,
Another
hey,
thing too, I forgot about this, but it was another thing that I thought was interesting to mention is people another common thing seems to be that people mention they have like the face of a dog and like
right.
the kind of like hind legs of a dog or like the lower torso of a dog, but they seem to have like the hands of like a person more so. Because there's like another encounter that I read where it was like a younger like 3 young girls who witnessed like 3 dogmen like in a huddle
Wow.
like around a lake and they were actually
Ooh.
scooping water up with their hands and drinking it out of their hands instead of drinking it
Whoa.
like a dog would with like by like lapping it
Hmm.
into their mouth. And a lot of people have like mentioned similar things like that where they will like pick things up with their hands like a human would.
Interesting.
But it's kind of interesting. Just what you said, Meg, it kind of reminded me of that. Like they definitely have like human tendencies, so I could honestly see that being the case. But that also reminded me those 3 girls that apparently saw that happen. The main one who actually told the story, she was given a lie detector test and she passed it, so that's why a lot of people
Oh.
talk about that story.
Sure.
Again, not that that's like totally
Right. Like we talked.
accurate or anything, but people talk about it quite a bit because she seemed very, again, freaked out and agreed to do a polygraph test and passed it and stuff like that. That actually I think happened in Wisconsin, I believe.
Nice.
Which there was a whole other story in Wisconsin about a guy who had like a pack of wolfmen that he believed were on his farm property. So yeah, they're just like wandering around everywhere apparently, and
Yeah.
you never know. You never know
that's-
when you might come across a dog man.
That's crazy because it's just what's so funny about my dog, our dog, Minnie. She's really protective now. So if anyone passes near our house, she'll jump on near our picture window and just growl and bark. And it kind of reminds me of this. That, you know, maybe they're really territorial. To Megan's point, they're having a little fun and get back to the other dog men and go like, "Hey, Gary, this is great, man."
Yeah, right.
I chased this Toyota up for like 2 miles. Those guys peed their pants. I know, like, you know what I mean? Like, having a little
I would
fun.
love that.
Totally freaked it out.
Like, yeah, you know,
Right?
tonight, you know what I'm going to do tonight? I'm going to go out there having a little campfire, a bunch of kids, and I'm going to go and circle them and growl at them.
Right?
Like,
You never know. You never know.
That's it?
Yeah.
Well, one other thing that interests me is a lot of people now have trail cams and everybody has a camera on their phone. Is, again, maybe why haven't we got a picture of this? And granted, if I would see a dog man just pop in front of me, the first thing I'm not thinking is, oh, I'll grab my phone. That's not what I'm thinking.
Yeah, you're
I'm
gonna be
thinking,
freaked out.
run, get in my car.
They're
and
actually I wish that I would have put this picture in there and now I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but there was a recent I think I actually saw it on TikTok because I was looking up Dogman on TikTok, but there was someone who had a trail cam picture that they thought was Dogman, and God, I can't find it now. We'll have to come back to it.
Take a look.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Awesome. Okay. Anything else, Megan, on the Dogman?
I don't think so. I don't know. I'm kind of leaning more towards this is believable just because it's
Yeah, right.
maybe it's like you
It,
said, a form of a wolf.
I'm
No,
I'm on the fence.
Right.
I can't say yes or no. I know I should say yes or no, but I'm on the fence. I don't know what to
Yeah,
think.
it's definitely it's really interesting. I just
Maybe
don't know what to
lean.
think either, but it seems like
Hmm,
of all the cryptid stories I look up, this
right.
it's almost kind of like a Sasquatch or something type of deal where
Sure.
it's just it happens in so many different locations. There's so many
Right.
eyewitness accounts. It's
And
Mhm.
not just like one
yeah.
cryptid.
And
Yeah.
remember, we live in a world where after 2 weeks you kind of forget about it. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
something
Mhm.
happened, you're like, oh, that happened. Oh yeah, that happened like 2 weeks ago. Whatever. You kind of move on. We're kind of in a move on world nowadays. So for this and Beast
Right.
of Bay Road to continue is interesting to me.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Yeah.
aw- awesome. So, ladies, I have a proposition for you, and it's a nice one. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, Brooke and Megan, what if I told you that I'm going to send you and your families, all expenses paid, to one of the most beautiful hotels in the United States? It's on an island along a gorgeous lake, and the views, oh, ladies, they're exquisite. What are you going to say?
Ooh,
What do you
That sounds
say?
amazing.
Yeah,
sign me up.
done, right?
Yeah, sign me up too.
Oh, I forgot to mention one thing. It's
Yeah.
built on top of a graveyard.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, that kind of complicates things, doesn't it?
So it's put on top of this
Uh,
graveyard. Um, and oh yeah, one other thing, ladies, no mini bar privileges. Okay, that's ubiquitous.
oh, well, that's the
Don't lead
main
me on
thing.
like this.
I can deal with the graveyard.
I love it. Brooke's like mini bar, oh graveyard, yeah, whatever, sure, I'm good.
That's Brooke's
But the
priorities.
minibar?
Megan's like mini bar, but I love almonds. Come on.
They do have an
So
ice cream shop though,
Uh,
so I'm down with that.
That's true. That's true.
So what are we talking about? We are talking about the Grand Hotel on Mackinac, again, my mush mouth. Thank you, Megan. Island in Michigan. So the Grand Hotel, if you've been there, please again share with us some pictures or some insight on it. Dairylandfrights@gmail.com. Go to our YouTube site, put some comments on there, upload a video. We'd love to see it. Hit subscribe because we also love that. And also, we'll put some pictures of the hotel on Instagram. I'll let Megan and Brooke do that because there's so many beautiful pictures. I immediately fell in love with this place. I was like, yes, I have to go there.
Yeah, it's
So,
beautiful.
while it's primarily known as an enchanting tourist attraction, it was
Ooh.
originally home to indigenous people, most of whom are buried on that island. Now, I will have Megan go to a little more of the history, but I don't want to steal your thunder. But it became a military fort really around this island where even more deaths and burials. So basically it's a massive burial ground. And this hotel is built right
Hmm.
on top of it or near it. Megan will talk about the cemeteries and she'll share that how freaky it is. But here's some quick facts about the Grand Hotel. It features one of the world's longest porches. I love this. It's whopping
Interesting.
660 feet. So, me, I'm a
That's a
guy who
long
loves the
porch.
rocking chair, sitting on the rocking chair, just sitting there. Hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Just thought that was weird for them to be like, we have the world's longest porch. I'm like, oh,
It's
okay, sounds nice. All right. Um, but since its construction in 1887, which that's crazy, 1887, Wisconsin
Long
became
time
a
ago.
state in 1848. So, like,
hmm
yeah. So it is hosted, this hotel, 5 United States presidents during overnight stays on the island. Throughout the generations, famous figures have spent the night. in the 300. I love how they describe this 338 room Wonderland. Well, I don't know where they got Wonderland from, but okay. Like I said, it included the presidents, 5 presidents, Mark Twain, Al Kaline. Do you guys know who Al Kaline is?
No, I don't.
Okay, he's a famous Detroit Tiger baseball player. He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Oh, okay.
Jane Seymour and Emma Roberts, double.
Cool.
So yeah, so they've stayed there, and one of the draws, of course, is whether it's haunted or not, is its proximity to the water and the beautiful lakefront views. And like I said, this is just crazy how beautiful it is. But of course, we're just not trying to sell a hotel to you. If the Grand Hotel wants to advertise with us, we will gladly accept their money. It's one of the hot spots for paranormal activity in Michigan. So legend says, and here we go again. When have we heard this before, ladies? Legend says construction workers uncovered human remains while digging the hotel's foundation. Duh. Burial mound. But to me, that
right.
So let me just ask really quick: what's more freaky, to find a body, like let's say you're jogging? I don't know. You both jog, whatever. Let's say you're walking, and you look over and find a dead body that's partially alive. Or let's say you're digging in the backyard, making a garden, whatever, and you find skeleton bones. Which is more scary to you, skeleton bones or the partial dead body?
Both, John.
Both. That's more scary. Skeleton, who cares? It's like, okay, I didn't kill, I'm talking about you found it.
Well, especially if...
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're like... you're building something on top of a burial ground. It's like, well, what did you expect? I'm sorry, but I'm gonna go with the partially alive dead body or whatever. Whatever it was.
That's what I go with. That's what's scary for me. Like, you would see this body on the side of the road, and that's too scary. Skeleton bones don't really scare me in the sense of I'm like, well, I don't really know what this is. It could be, because remember we talked back in the day, it was common to bury, your uncle or aunt or grandma and grandpa on the property.
In the backyard.
Right.
Yeah. It's just common, Not that it makes it right.
It's true.
But this is my favorite. And here we go again. These maintenance guys, these maintenance and security guys, give them hazard pay. Let's pay them better, because if they're not seeing dogmen or evil entities, they're seeing UFOs.
That's so true.
Right? Come on, hazard pay.
So true. Yeah.
Another story at the Grand Hotel is a maintenance man. He saw an evil entity which shows itself as a black mass with glowing red eyes.
Ooh.
So now that's scary, right? So this maintenance man, he's working on the theater stage in the Grand Hotel, and he reported that the black mass rushed after him, knocking him off his feet. He awoke. This is crazy. 2 days later, and he never returned.
Wow.
Now, this is really funny in my research. It didn't say where he awoke. So
that was like, was just laying on the same spot.
Yeah. Yeah. You're sitting there for 2 days and nobody went, hey, where's Henry? I don't know. Oh, well. And then you wake up in this theater and you saw this evil entity. That's crazy. Of course he never returned. Duh.
I wouldn't return.
So that was interesting to me. The staff has reported seeing a man in a top hat playing the bar's piano. That is the common one, where you walk down at night and people have claimed they've just sat down and they'll see this man in a top hat. He's playing the piano. Everybody's like, oh, wow, he's really good. And then they'll get up to leave and come back and he's gone. Everybody's like, oh. And then they'll go to the manager and go, hey, that guy playing the piano, he was really good. When can I see him again? And they'll be like, oh,
What
Yeah,
guy?
he's the ghost. Like they embrace it. They do not be like, it's not haunted. They're like, oh yeah. So this one is one of my favorites because it talked with our Valentine's Day episode. Others see a woman in Victorian clothing who roams the halls and even gets into beds.
That's
Nice.
scary.
So our
Good for her.
Valentine's Day special about spectrophilia and some ghosts being a little naughty.
Yeah.
This is one of them.
You know,
So, and
she
then
got to get
these
herself some.
be careful, you know. That's all I have to say about a woman getting in bed. Yeah. So anyway, a couple more well-known spirits are the woman in black. Now, you two are like this. Well, me too. I like dogs. The woman in black walks her big white dog up and down the hotel's
Oh.
massive front porch after dark. Now,
Hmm.
this is really funny
That's
because
awesome.
I immediately envision you, Brooke, and Megan coming up to this woman and be like, "Oh, what a good little dog he is."
Naturally.
Oh, yeah,
you
for
look
sure.
at it. You know me too well.
Can I
Ben.
pet the ghost dog? Yeah, that's true.
Just petting it. And be like, "Oh, good little dog." This woman in total black is just staring at you. "Oh, look at the doggy."
No, with like
And then
no
everything
eyes,
they
no
just
face.
disappear.
Yeah, you're like, okay. I just laughed at that because I know you both love your dogs. Now the other one is a ghost of, and I do admit little children freak me out when it comes to ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
She's little Rebecca,
It's true.
and who she passed away on the grounds and haunts the fourth floor, being spotted floating or walking through walls and disappearing to nowhere. So there wasn't really anything in here where anybody said like, "Oh, I saw her." You know, there was just kind of like, "I think I saw her," and whatever. But what they say here is, and I think this is really funny because you can do this too. If we cover the Stanley Hotel in Colorado, where The Shining was done or supposedly done, where you can walk the halls yourself alone anywhere between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. You want to see little Rebecca. So my next question would be, and here it comes, Brooke, would you walk alone 2 a.m., 4 a.m. the halls?
Alone?
Alone.
I think I would, as long as I had a friend like staying in a nearby room, so I could like run there if I got freaked out and be like, "Oh my god, I just saw a creepy little girl."
Yeah.
I wouldn't stay at the hotel by myself. I don't think I'm brave enough to do that. Not
Megan,
yet,
I already
at
know
least.
your answer.
Actually, though,
Oh, here we
I'm okay
go.
with that.
Nice.
I mean, especially if there's a ghost dog involved somewhere on the premises. I'll go find the dog.
That's true.
All right, so this is what we're going to do,
Yeah.
Brooke. We're going to strap a GoPro camera to Megan,
Megan?
I can see the
and
baby.
we're going to have her walk up and down the hall alone.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I can, like kind of entice the ghost. I can be like, "Oh no, I'm all alone. I hope I don't get scared.
There you go.
I hope I don't
That'd be
see little
perfect.
Rebecca."
Megan, you are full of surprises.
Perfect.
Oh, and then
That
Brooke,
is
you can have
perfect.
like the holy water like in the next room, just in case.
Yeah, but in like a squirt gun. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Squirt gun for maximum length.
So all of this is from research called In Your State. There was one other thing I thought was really interesting. I don't know if this is true because I saw YouTube videos of people walking alone and trying to see something. But according to the Grand Hotel, they don't allow ghost hunters. Don't know why.
Oh, interesting.
So they don't allow like your old friend Zach and his clothing line.
Oh, no, Zach. Ugh.
But I don't know if
His
that's
clothing
true.
line.
I don't know if that's true because I was like looking and I saw YouTube videos all over the place where like these two guys were like walking with their phones and be like, "Hey, we're walking in the fourth floor looking for little Rebecca." And So I don't know.
Right.
I think
Huh.
it's kind of dumb that they don't allow that because it's such a huge place. Like, why wouldn't you be like, hey guys, you can film from 2 to 4, and then you got to get your butts out of here, kind of thing. I
Yeah.
don't know.
They just won't
Interesting.
like shut the place down for paranormal investigations because some places I think have to like, oh, like we want
And you're
everyone
probably
out of
right.
here, and that's a little unreasonable.
Yeah, it's a little unreasonable.
Maybe if you're like a hobby investigator, they'll let you do what you want to do. But
Yeah. So this is definitely a destination site road trip. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. So here's things that I found from a site called Michigan hauntedhouses.com about the Grand Hotel. This is a quote. This is the scariest and silliest quote I've ever heard in my life, but I'll try to give it justice. So here we go. This is a quote from someone who stayed at the Grand Hotel. I once stayed in the Grand Hotel. It wasn't so grand when an apparition lifted me 16 inches off the floor in the middle of the night. I awoke to the sound of heavy moaning coming from the room next door. I think that's something else, pal. You might want to look into that. I thought that was strange. So here's heavy moaning, and he thought it was strange. So what does he do? He knocks on the door.
knocks
No
on
one
the door.
answered. Oh, duh.
No chill.
So this is my favorite one. I knock once more, just for gigs, and holy moly,
Just for gigs.
holy moly, yes, that's his quote. I heard something behind the door, that door moan. Okay, again, maybe you think it's something else, but we won't get into that. Another experience I had was when I ate dinner in the dining room. I was eating alphabet soup. Now, hold on.
No way they would serve that.
Interesting.
The Grand Hotel has alphabet soup for like 3-year-old
I
kids.
Maybe.
Okay. All right. I had the sudden urge to use the potty.
Oh my God,
Grown
what is this
man.
guy 12?
I got up and used the potty. Well, that's good. When I came back, check this out. The letters in my soup said, eggs guy. I have no idea what that
Oh my
meant
God.
or could mean. I spent days researching egg guy, but have found no correlation to the paranormal. But I still believe in the true meaning is out there. Overall, this place death haunted.
Wow.
Oh my God. It's like
This is from
that's the
February
best.
5th, 2020.
Yeah. So I feel like this
Mine
ties
was
in
a
with
ghost.
prankster ghosts again.
Yeah.
Like,
I was gonna say I would absolutely rearrange letters to say eggs guy to freak people
all the
out.
things you could say.
Right? Oh my gosh. So I went to TripAdvisor because I'm like, I want to see how much the rooms cost. So pretty reasonable. Depends where you stay. It's about $200 to $500 a night. Kind of reasonable, I guess. But anyway, they had a ghost encounter on there. Somebody actually wrote on TripAdvisor they had a ghostly encounter. I am not going to read it because it's really long and super lame. Basically, this couple claims a ghost moved their wife's eyeglasses. That was it.
Oh, that's
Whoa.
it. Maybe,
Right.
maybe.
Ooh. So basically, it was like, hey, we came home. We were, drinking, and we came home, and me and my wife got a little, what, and then she looked for her glasses. She couldn't find them, and then she went to the bathroom, and there her glasses sitting on the sink. And then when I came back, got back into bed, they were gone. That was pretty much it.
Interesting. Fascinating
Like
story.
the world's lamest ghost encounter.
Yeah. But before I turn it over to Megan, I wanted to talk about something that I saw really cool, that was really interesting, that's around the Grand Hotel called the Drowning Pool. Now, this is super weird because about witches. And I know we're kind of getting a little off topic, but I just thought this was crazy. Okay. Now I'll just do it really quickly. But so in the 1700s and early 1800s, 7 women were accused of being witches. Now remember, this is Michigan. So, okay.
Mhm.
So if you're familiar back in those days, this is the dumbest. As humans, I can't believe how dumb we are when we're trying to figure something out sometimes. How would you determine if, like, you or Megan were a witch? Well, very simple. This is what I would do to either one of you. And I wouldn't do that because I love you both. But I would tie rocks to your feet, and then I would throw you both in the water. Again, I wouldn't do that. I love you both. Throw you both in the water. And if you floated, you're a witch. Brooke, Megan, you're witches. I'm sorry. I gotta hang you, burn you.
Okay.
I'm sorry. But if you sink, oh, you're not a witch. You're good.
but you're dead
But
anyway.
yeah, I was gonna die.
So
anyway.
either way.
Okay.
So either way, you're dead.
This is a trick, guys.
So I imagine coming up to you and be like, Megan, Brooke, I think you're witches. And you'd be like, John, no, you know us and everything. Hey, look, like I said, I love you both. This is what I'm going to do to make it fair. I'm going to tie rocks to your feet. And I'm going to throw you in this pool. And if you drowned, hey, I told you you were innocent. Of course, I knew that. But if you float, sorry, you're a witch.
We're
Now,
gonna kill you anyway.
we will put this on Instagram because when you see this place, I guarantee you'll be like, oh, hell yeah, that is creepy. That is really creepy. And this is around Mackinac Island off a place called between Mission Point and downtown Mackinac. And they basically said these women who drowned there, legends say that to this day, visitors report seeing mysterious splashing, shadows, and dark figures floating above the surface. So I just wanted to bring that up because it's kind of near there where the Grand Hotel is. You would have to obviously hike or take a ferry or something like you normally would do to get this island. But I was just really interested in Michigan and witches. I never put that together, right?
Yeah.
It's usually, you know, Maine or whatever, right? Or East Coast. So
Interesting.
Anyway, there you go. So, yeah, I just think it's definitely worth a road trip and everything. And really want to go now to Megan so she can fill in the gaps about these cemeteries and everything like that. Because again, scary. It's an island full of bones. So
yeah, I've got some scary stories to keep the ball rolling, and I've never stayed at the Grand Hotel, but I've been to Mackinac Island twice, and can't say I've seen any shadow figures or dead witches, but there's still time. Anyways, so something cool about Mackinac Island, if you listeners haven't been there, is that there are no cars allowed on the island. You can only travel by horse or wagon or bike. I think the emergency personnel do have a few motor vehicles just for emergencies, but there are no cars allowed, which is very interesting. So all of these cemeteries, if you do want to visit them, you will have to take a bike or a horse-drawn carriage. Kind of cool. So there's 3 different cemeteries on this island. One is the Fort Mackinac Post Cemetery. That's a military cemetery. And then there's 2 civilian cemeteries. There's St. Anne's and then Mackinac Island Cemetery. So all of those different cemeteries lay adjacent to one another on Garrison Road, which is kind of right smack dab in the middle of the island. So I thought I would just cover a few fun facts about each of the cemeteries to close out our episode. Found some cool history to tell you guys. So the first one is the Post Cemetery. This is actually a National Historic Landmark. And this is where some of the Fort Mackinac soldiers, their families, and local officials were buried. which is kind of cool. And some of the graves are as old as dating back to the War of 1812, so pretty old. But I would say most of the graves, I found a list of them. Most of them are dated to like the mid to late 1800s, so still pretty old. But something interesting is both British and American soldiers are buried there, which is interesting. But this just made me laugh. Based on the research that I was reading, they did like a terrible job keeping track of like who was buried who at who was buried where in the cemetery. So they thought, back in the day, they were just going to mark people's graves with wooden crosses. But as we all know, wood doesn't last very long. So some of these wood crosses just completely decayed away. So they just weren't marked anymore. And plus they kept like very terrible records of like who was buried who. So, and then to add to things, in the 20th century, the caretakers made mistakes on replacement headstones with incorrect information. So today there's 108 burials at this cemetery, but we only know the names of 39 of them. That's bad. That's really bad. There's 69 people in the cemetery. We just have no idea who they are because there's such terrible records. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Would definitely recommend visiting that if you take a tour there. But there's two other cemeteries I was going to tell you about. This first one has an interesting story to it. The first one's a civilian cemetery. It's called St. Anne's. And it actually has one of the oldest graves on all of Mackinac Island there. There's this child, actually. Her name was Mary Biddle, and she died in 1833, and she was only 8 years old, and she fell through the ice and died. So that's the oldest grave on the island is 1833, so pretty old. So I put this picture in the outline, and I can add that to Instagram as well. But at St. Anne's, there's this archway that leads into the cemetery, and legend has it that this gate that they built was supposedly large enough to accommodate like a horse-drawn hearse to come to the cemetery. But when they were building the arch, they forgot that there would be a horse, like a driver driving the hearse. So the archway is not tall enough to accommodate a person driving the hearse. So that's interesting. Where like the legend of like the headless horseman or hearse man.
Oh, cool.
Huh. Interesting.
Nice.
So
that's so funny.
Yeah, so I forgot about that when they were building that. So interesting story. And then the last cemetery, I didn't find too much on it, but it's called the Mackinac Island Cemetery, also known as the Protestant Cemetery. And graves were actually moved here in 1850 because people were being buried downtown. But even at that time, they were way too overcrowded trying to build a bunch of things downtown. So they actually exhumed the graves and moved the bodies to this cemetery. So kind of interesting. So fun fact, there are so many people who want to be buried on Mackinac Island that they're actually turning people away.
What?
So you have to, you have to meet prerequisites in order to be buried on Mackinac Island. I've never heard that anywhere. So there's stipulations. One, you have to be born on the island.
Oh boy.
2, you have to be like a resident of the island, or you have to have owned a business on the island for 15 years. So, and you have to get like an application to be buried there, which is interesting.
That's crazy.
It's so funny. It's like, I want an interview to be buried here. So interesting.
Right? Just something that's going to happen after you die. It's so funny.
All right, I've
dead. Let me in.
They're literally dying to get in, John.
Good one.
All right, I have one last story before I let you all go. This is super interesting. So back in 2011, there was this historic building called the McNally Cottage, and it's kind of like a White House. And it was going to be demolished because they were going to build this like brand new 3-story hotel. So people were obviously upset about it, but understandable. They wanted to build something different there. But when they were tearing this cottage down and they were, digging the foundation to build this new massive hotel, they actually found this huge burial site with like hundreds of animal bones and human bones in it.
Nice.
So, John, it kind of goes with your story. It's like, I wonder how many forgotten burial sites there are on this island. It's a little scary.
Very scary.
So they were thinking that the McNally cottage might have been built on top of a Catholic cemetery from the 19th century, where members of the parish might have also been Native American. So they're thinking that they might be, people from the parish. So tribal members actually claimed the bodies that were found and they reburied them somewhere else. So something super interesting about the McNally cottage was that it was built in 1889 and it was built for $500. That's it.
Nice.
Yeah. And they added a little bit of extra money. It came out to $1,000 because they built a fort.
Big spender.
But when it was purchased in 2009, it sold for $1.7 million.
Whoa. Oh my God.
So today
Insane.
it is actually the Bicycle Inn and Suites. So I have actually when I was there. So a little sad, but it seems like they took care of the bones that were found. So definitely a very
that's good.
That's awesome. I mean, I think we don't wrap our minds around this. The whole dang island is a burial ground.
It is from different centuries, hundreds of people, if not thousands of people. We have no idea.
So just really quickly, imagine when you guys were house hunting and someone said, "Hey, Brooke, Megan, I'll be the realtor. Hey, Brooke, Megan, this is a great house for either one of you, but it's on a burial mound. Just let me know."
Yeah.
I don't know. Kind of a deal breaker.
I don't know if I could live there. I would love to visit a place like that, but I don't know if I could permanently live there.
Absolutely.
I have a fun fact for you, John.
Yes.
The previous homeowner, when she vacated my house that I now own today, she left a cross nailed to the ceiling in the basement, and I've left it up because I don't know what that means. Just want to keep it there. But there have been no hauntings or deaths in this house. So I think I'm okay.
Megan, that's so cool.
Yeah, I'll send a picture.
Please. Bury the lead, Megan. That just really quick. It reminds me of a house that we got to do as a haunted house where these people moved in, and all in their closets were crosses, like nailed everywhere in the closet. Like any closet you went to, there was crosses, like multitude of crosses. And I was like, what? And then as soon as they took they of course took the crosses away, and then just, oh my God, it was like the devil himself just said, "I'm kicking some butt and I'm gonna make your life miserable." So don't take that cross down is my point.
No, I'm gonna keep it, man. It's a feature of the house now.
So awesome, Brooke, Dogman, Beast of Bray Road. Maybe they're cousins, right? Who knows?
Maybe, who knows?
Grand Hotel, lovely place to stay. We'll have to think about that, but no minibar privileges. And then just the historical burial sites that people actually want to be buried there. Okay, I get it.
Okay.
So awesome stories. Anything else before we wind up in the episode?
I don't think so.
Awesome.
I'm really interested.
So really
branching
quickly,
out into Michigan.
Yes. So next week, I can tell you what it's gonna be, episode 13. So
spooky.
Curses, phobias, and we're gonna talk about it. But I thought it'd be really cool, ladies, since it's episode 13, and some people have Friday 13th, they have a phobia and stuff. I thought it'd be really cool if we cover like cursed dolls, like Annabelle, all these other curses and all these really cool things. So that will be our 13th episode coming up after these two, that we talked about. But just little teaser that episode 13. I just want to put a little teaser out there. Again, dairylandfrights@gmail.com. If you have anything you want to share, we are totally open to it. Even dads, you can share some more. And go to our Instagram, YouTube. We're on every podcast site out there to catch us. And we love all you. Like we said, our little Parisconis and everyone who listens to this. And that's it for me. So, guess I will talk to you ladies later.
Yeah, see you next time.
See you next time. See ya. This is John from Dairyland Frights. And are you scared of your podcast hosting site? Well, not anymore, because with Podbean, you can get a free month of hosting for your podcast. And also, yes, there's more. You can get $100 of free advertising for your podcast, where you can advertise on Dairyland Frights or in many other podcasts on Podbean. So don't be scared and come over to Podbean today. And you can go to Dairyland Frights, podbean.com. That's Dairyland Frights, podbean.com. So don't be scared. Come over to Podbean. We love it. You'll love it too.